What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the lounge. So on today's episode, we're going to highlight another eBayer who is on his way out. And I do this because you're going to get the most honest perspective of somebody who no longer has any skin in the game, because there's no reason to. So his position allows him to do this. Today's video comes to us from Journey to Wealth, I believe. And full disclosure, this video is 3 years old, honestly. So this is way before, I started doing this series, right? And so definitely I had nothing to do with this guy. This was one of the third to last videos that he ever did on his channel. So after this, he had another one, and then he had another video about a year ago, which basically is about cleaning up all the inventory from his storage lockers and stuff. And essentially, he is a man of his word. He really did end up quitting eBay. I also want to say that according to him and his other channels and stuff, I believe he has made a claim that he has done this for about 23 years. So that's not in this video, but that was my deep dive of his channel. So the video today is called I Quit Listing on eBay for 4 months, and here's what happened.
I quit listing my items on eBay for 4 months. So what happened? What happened to my sales? What did I learn? Am I going to list on eBay again? And if so, what would I change? Those are the topics of today's video, so stay tuned till the very end. Also, smash that like button if you would. Please helps me out with the algorithm. Let's get into it.
A lot of people do these videos and they don't end up quitting.
In June of this year. June 24th was the last time that I listed anything on eBay. So what happens when you stop listing on eBay? Do your sales decrease, or do they maybe increase? Well, I can only tell you what happened to me, so let's get into it. But first, let's talk about why I stopped listing. First, I'm currently trying to build another business, and I needed to devote all of my attention to that business. So I pulled away from eBay, even though eBay is pretty much what pays my bills right now.
That is super brave.
I had health issues that I was trying to focus on, and I was kind of worn out, and I was kind of, a little bit stressed because I'd taken on a little bit more burden than I thought. And so I needed to kind of back away from everything for a little bit there. And third, I took some time to reevaluate kind of where everything was headed, where my life was headed, and if reselling or eBay was still something that I wanted to continue doing, or if I wanted to kind of pivot and change directions. The world has kind of changed a little bit in the last couple of years, and I'm seeing a little bit of opportunities in some other areas. So I just kind of had to step back and reevaluate. On that note, if you want my further opinion on that kind of stuff, let me know in the comments, and I'll make a video here shortly. Also, while you're down there, thump that like button. Helps me out with the algorithm.
I wish I could have helped them. I wasn't around 3 years ago.
So let's get into it. But first, a couple of caveats. Okay. One, I did have to relist a couple items during this time because they were cancellations or returns. So they weren't new items. It was just I refreshed the listing and had to relist it.
Real quick, pro tip, you could go into your settings and change it so that your listing doesn't go away after the quantity hits 0. So I do this for my items because I run all replenishable items. But sometimes when there's an item that we want to discontinue because we don't think it's suitable anymore, or we have the updated version of it, so we don't want to run version 1.0 anymore, and then we're just clearing out that stock. I hate it when I'm down to one piece left and then it gets refunded or it gets returned and then we had to refund it and then we got to put it back up. So ever since we changed the settings so that if the listing is completely sold out, it'll just stay sold out, but the listing won't disappear. Just in case that last piece comes back to us for any reason, I could just go ahead and then update that quantity back to 1 and then, possibly refurbish the item, possibly just repack the item, and then we could sell it again, right? So what's good about that is that the listing does not require internet propagation, excuse me. So what that means is that every single time you put up a listing, yeah, you're able to see it live immediately, but that doesn't mean that other people who search for it are able to search for it immediately. It's kind of like sowing a seed. It doesn't become a sapling instantly. So when it comes to a propagated listing, right, that also has a lot of metadata behind it, that's what's going to allow it to sell very quickly because it's got all that, click-through rates and conversion rates and sell-through data. So what you want to do is that if you have a replenishable item and you're down to the last one, don't let that listing die, okay? You got to make sure that after you sold your last unit, 30 days have gone by, nobody's returning anything. Okay, now we could get rid of the listing if you absolutely have no more to sell. Otherwise, keep that listing in live just in case, because that way you could relist immediately and, get it out of here and get your money back and move on with life.
Secondly, I did try a batch of, I think it was 10 items that I ended the items and then I relisted them, because that was a strategy that a lot of people were saying was like increasing their sales. My experience was that it didn't increase sales at all. In fact, all 10 items that I ended and relisted are still available on my store.
Okay, so this is called the honeymoon period, and we will thoroughly cover this in the next episode of Analyzing the Advice. We actually have a big time eBay YouTuber who will confirm this, okay? Because supposedly she spoke to eBay directly about it. So here's what I want to say, okay? Do you guys understand what proving a negative is? It's when the burden of proof is on someone else, yet I'm still in the position to have to debunk it. Kind of like saying to your girlfriend, how do you prove that you didn't cheat on her? You know what I mean? Because the burden of proof is that she has to prove, like, photos, something that you did. You can't prove something doesn't exist as easily as you could prove that something does exist. So when we're talking about like the honeymoon phase, about you get a certain boost of visibility, yada, yada. Like, this comes into exactly what I was saying before of internet propagation. The listing didn't propagate yet. So why would there be a boost of visibility? It doesn't actually happen. There could be anecdotal evidence that it just happened to sell that day, right? Because later on that day, it's a coincidence when that happens, because there's no way for you to guarantee it, replicate it, or know for sure. See, this is what I mean, the burden of proof. So when you think about what happens, this comes from the myth of the negative brownie point myth, okay? So how it works is like this. People start to think that, okay, it's got a lot of click-through rate on it, but it hasn't sold. So Cassini is going to see this as worthless, right? Because so many people looked at it and they don't want it. So now we're going to remove its visibility a little bit. But this doesn't actually make any sense. This doesn't actually happen, because all of us have had that experience, if you've been doing eBay long enough, that you sold something 3 months later, 8 months later, maybe even a year later. If brownie points were a thing, negative brownie points were a thing, negative visibility was a thing, then that doesn't explain why something could suddenly sell a year later of, I didn't touch the listing, I didn't do anything. If anything, I just completely forgot about it. Many of us who once in a while are selling something from home, right? A pair of shoes that somebody got for you that's brand new, but you never wore them because you think they're hideous. So you just go ahead and you put them on eBay, a new jacket or something like that. This is exactly the scenario, right? Maybe it'll sell in 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe it'll sell it a year later. You don't know. But why would the item sell a year later if it's accumulated so much negative visibility? You see what I'm saying? So my point is, both truths cannot exist at the same time, and that's why it's not a thing. Let's keep going. So
by the numbers, let's see what happened, right? So my eBay account stats as of the time that I stopped listing, which was June 24th, the very tail end of June, I had 236 active listings. Listings that I have on there today are 151. So whatever the difference is there, that's how many. In June, I sold 38 listings, and June was a month that I was still listing up until the 24th. So that's no surprising. Like, I only listed for 1 week, and I think I put 25 listings up. So I didn't list a lot in June, but that's the last time that I had a string of events that I listed in. So for June, I only sold 38 items with a grand total of $2,551.32 in revenue, or an average sale value of about $67.14 per item. Now, that's complete gross sales. That's not profit or anything like that.
I love this guy. He is so transparent. You see what he did there? He added that is gross sales. I like it when people do that. Don't throw out big fat numbers and not let people know that you're just talking about gross sales. Don't throw out like, I make $250,000 a year in gross sales, and then a huge chunk of that goes to shipping. Like come on, that's. This guy comes correct. I like him.
Sales in July dropped off pretty dramatically. So keep in mind, I stopped listing in June. Now, July, for the full month of no listing, I sold only 22 items with a grand total revenue of $1,290.64. With that, kind of dropped my average sale value down to $58.66. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that in July, I was accepting pretty much, all the offers that came my way. So moving on to August, I sold exactly 10 items for $555.40. That made my average sale value $55.54. Easy math there. September, I dropped down to 9, so I almost did. I kind of plateaued there. August was 10, September's 9, for $491.55. It dropped.
You see how like your better stuff is definitely going to go first, and then your business takes a nosedive immediately without you. See, this is the thing about eBay reselling, okay? As you get better at it, you're getting better at it, okay? Let me be clear of what I'm trying to explain here. As you do eBay reselling more and more, you get better at doing listings. You take photography and all that stuff faster. You get better at doing titles and descriptions and stuff. You get better at sourcing things. You have a better idea of what will sell and what probably nobody wants, right? You just get better at this. But ultimately, what are you refining here? Are you refining just you or the business? So if this is what's happening, right? This is just you getting better and better at doing a job. You're not building a business here, because the business itself should have a certain momentum. Had this been a couple of replenishable products and he wanted to stop doing this business, all he had to do was just stop reordering the item. And whatever momentum is still there that is moving, what he said earlier, like 38 units a day, the next month would have been roughly about 38 to 40 units a day, for the whole month, right? And then the next month would have been another 40 units. It would be consistent, because there's no reason for it to die down unless there is a trend market shift. But this is completely different. You're dealing with all single one-off items. So therefore, your higher demand items are definitely going to move first, and then your lower demand items are just going to be in the back of the queue and move slowly. This is organic. This is natural. This is exactly what happens.
Dropped my average sale value down $54.61, which is a little bit lower than $55, but hanging in there. And in October, I only sold 6 items. Total revenue in October was $419.69, and my average sale value was actually $69.94, because I did sell a couple items in October that were like higher value items, so it kind of like skewed that number a little bit. So as you can see, over the course of the 5 months.
So, if anything, this totally replicates a faucet, right? The water was flowing, and then you turn the faucet off, and now it's coming to a slow crawl, and then, a couple of drops.
My sales went down quite a bit. I generally sell, if I'm listing consistently on this specific account, this is just kind of my everything account, my thrift store items, all that kind of stuff. If I just list consistently on there, I'm generally selling between 50 and 100 items if I'm actually listing something every single day. So June, selling only 38 items. I was already low, but like I said, I think I listed 5 days in June total. So not very many items. I think I only listed 25 items in June. It's hard for me to go back and look at that because eBay's already purged that data. But if I remember correctly, it was somewhere around there.
So if you're listing every single day, and then you'll do anywhere between 50 to 100 items versus like you only listed for the 5 days the whole month and you still did 38 items, I'd say that's pretty good for your average.
So some observations that I have, right? So the first 2 months I did pretty much absolutely nothing. July, I started accepting pretty much the offers that were coming my way, but I didn't do anything in the way of like updating titles, changing prices, doing any kind of like auditing of my listings to make sure that they looked good or anything. I stayed out of my eBay account entirely for the first 2 months. And sales decreased massively, as expected. I think that's a pretty obvious outcome.
I like that. He's not delusional about it. It's an obvious outcome. I don't know why it's not okay when I say it, but like when he says it, it's fine. Like I don't get it. Isn't it so obvious that that's exactly what would happen?
But the last 2 months, I changed things up. As I mentioned before, in August, I actually ended 10 items and then relisted those items to see if that would trigger any sales or any kind of boost to my search results in the algorithm or whatever. I didn't see anything as far as benefit from that. So I didn't really do that again. I just did it one time in August and that was it. And in the last 2 months,
It's interesting that he was in the game for 23 years and he only tried that once, you know? I imagine if it was a prevalent myth, then like somebody would have did this like a long time ago.
So September and October, I updated pricing. I was going in there on a weekly basis and changing pricing by like $1 here, $1 there. I was looking at titles and maybe correcting some titles if there was something. And I was sending offers to people that were watching. So when you're got watchers on your items, it allows you to send them offers. And I was actually doing that in the last 2 months. And even doing that, I still only sold like 15 total items between September and October. But I did notice one thing. I noticed that when I would update the pricing or change the pricing a little bit or reconfigure the titles, I would almost immediately get more people watching because I would send out offers to everybody who was on my watching list. And then I would update titles and do something the next day. And then it would be like immediately there would be more people watching. So
I've read this in eBay best practices, right? Basically what they want you to do is, don't take down your listings if you don't have to. Revise more than you take it down. Every single time you revise, then something changes and maybe you'll get another chance. But if you just take it down and put it back up, then, the listing has to propagate again. So if anything, you're hindering growth that way. What he's doing is the correct thing and it actually does help. The question is that as a reseller, the effort, the time and the energy that you had to put in to making the listing the first time just to sell it once. And if it doesn't sell, then we have to essentially go back and then tweak it again, right? So, it's almost like double the work, right? Not totally, but it's almost like double the work. It's totally worth your time to do this for a replenishable item. Okay. If I had to add up like some of my better items, like how much I have tweaked it, revised it, worked on it, I would say probably put in about a good, 2 weeks worth of time, revising my listing constantly. Okay. If anything, there is a section that you could click on somebody's listing to see how many times they've revised it and all the revisions that it's actually been through. But my point is that it's totally worth my time to do so because I'm just revising the listing. I'm not taking photos over again unless I have new photos to add. And, I'll beef up the title or something. But this listing is moving 15 units for me every single day. Absolutely, this is worth my time. I'm not going to do this with, a one-shotter.
I feel like that actually does something. I feel like it gets it in front of more eyes.
So you become really torn, you're putting in so much work just to sell items once. And I don't want that for you guys. I want you guys to have manageable listings that are streamlined and straightforward and just, very easy to take care of and handle every day. And then you have consistent sales coming through all of this so that like you could make your projected sales. You're not going to have this roller coaster effect that most resellers have, which is, we had the good months, we had the bad months, it's up, it's down. You would know, And the best thing about having projected sales is, let's say if you had an item that was moving consistently 10 units for you every day. Now it's doing somewhere around 8 and you're like, maybe it's just a bad month or something. And now it's down to 5, it's down to 3. All right, let's not reorder this thing. It's time to phase it out because there's clearly a market shift. People feel something different about this, or there is a competitor somewhere and we need to go find out what happened, right? There's alerts that you can feel, but every single time you're doing just one single item, that's not enough data for you to really do anything about.
Nice. So I'm going to continue doing that, obviously, because I seem to be getting some results. Obviously, not good enough results to just sit there. I still have 151 items in my eBay store, in my inventory.
You need a larger
and
sample
it's
size.
Dwindled way down to like 6 items a month in the holiday peak season. So it's not doing that much, but it's doing enough to just like get some more eyeballs on my items, which I'm kind of happy about. So what I rediscovered or kind of discovered again, these are things that I kind of knew, but I didn't really like. They're not top of mind type things. eBay is not passive income. It is not at all.
Ooh, quick. Okay. eBay reselling is not passive income. What I do is absolutely passive income, but it is about setting up the groundwork so that you have the whole pipeline, so that all you have to do is reorder and replenish. If you're doing this, this obviously requires elbow grease, right? My criticism about eBay reselling is not that it doesn't work, but it works essentially like a bicycle. You have to pedal it every single day in order to get any momentum. If you're really building a business that starts to gain traction between brand loyalty and having a following and all that stuff, right? All that good stuff. If you do a replenishable item, what's great about that is this. You can set it up so that once you have a winner, okay, you would go ahead and start getting on other platforms as well, okay? Because eBay will always absorb your inventory for you just in case it doesn't do well on other platforms. So now, let's say your item is moving, 12 units every single day, okay? Then you would go ahead and order, I don't know, something like a good 800 units or something like that, because now you have the supply for it. And once you get your account for Walmart and Amazon and Etsy, just leave it at fulfilled by seller in the beginning and then see how well they do. So you could share some of your inventory over to those other websites as well and then sell some over there, right? If it doesn't do well, eBay will absorb the whole thing. Don't worry about it. But if it does do well, now your item is a multi-channel item. There's one claim that I really want to make very clear, okay? If you eBay resell, you will never experience this with your listing, which is your listings ranking on Google. Essentially, what happens is that once your item sells very well, the platform will begin to partner with you, whether you like it or not. So if you ever search for something on Google, right, a vacuum cleaner, whatever, it doesn't matter, okay? And you found an Amazon listing, a Walmart listing, an eBay listing, an Etsy listing that you could click right underneath, that's exactly what I'm talking about. This doesn't happen in the reseller model because you only have a single one-off item. You haven't done enough sales in order to show up on the algorithm's radar for them to say, all right, you know what? We're going to move them through the rankings and then we're going to push them into the Google rankings as well. Now, what happens is that your item not only sells on eBay through eBay, but as well as through external links. So there are other websites such as Etsy and stuff where you could go into the back end and then you could see that how your impressions are being made and who's clicking on what, and then you could see that from Google searches and stuff. Especially if another way to do it is if you paid for ads so that they rank on Google through Etsy. But anyways, my point is that in the reseller model, because you only have one unit, it's never going to get there, right? Nor is it really worth your time to set things up that way. And that's why every single reseller on YouTube tells you that you have to start listing faster, right? But if you're listing faster, you're not making quality listings. And now you have to go back to revising it. So it's really, it's so much work to do this.
A passive income stream. When you stop listing,
it's definitely not passive.
You stop
right.
selling. You
when
stop
you do
making
it like
money the second that you stop listing. So the only way that you can continue to make money on eBay is to list more items. If you're running it the way that a lot of us are running it, buying and selling things from garage sales and thrift stores and doing that kind of thing. Now, if you're doing replenishables or you're doing like drop shipping or eBay drop shipping or whatever, that might not be the case.
See, he's getting there. He's getting a good grasp. This is exactly what I preach on my channel. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And he's even saying it. If you're like most of us, this is exactly what happens. This is what I mean, okay? Before I started this channel, I made sure exactly what I could offer, what value I could add to the conversation, okay? I know there's going to be a lot of people who are diehard resellers and you just want to be a reseller. Then, this channel and these videos are simply not for you. But this is exactly the frustration that a lot of people are going through. And there is a solution for what he's doing, and it requires you to evolve, not fix the current. For example, right? He's going to get into exactly, where the bottlenecks of eBay reselling is, but he never gets to an actual solution, but he knows that he needs to get to one. You'll see what I mean in a sec.
I don't do drop shipping on my eBay account, so I do one-off type sales.
Right.
And in that regard, eBay is absolutely not passive income. Essentially, you're just as good as the last thing that you upload, the last listing. And if you stop making listings, you're going to stop making money. And that's just the way it is. The second thing that I observed was, if I'm going to keep selling,
can I get an amen? This is exactly what I'm talking about.
on eBay, I need to hire a helper. I need to hire somebody that can be there and do the things that I'm not good at doing.
Okay, so I'm going to call this ahead of time, right? Here's the problem with hiring the help. Whatever it is that you're doing and you're flipping and you're finding, especially through thrift stores and stuff like that, will the profits be good enough to cover an employee's salary? Okay. Now, if you're offering decent salary, yes, that could happen, right? But if you're not able to provide a decent salary, then what kind of person is going to answer the ad? Like, what kind of caliber individual are you going to get? That's very important. Okay. So even if you train them, they can't be klutzy, right? So this is a real bottleneck in doing eBay reselling and hiring people. This is why also the model itself is so difficult. You have to have good margins and you have to make very good sales, but then you have to chase the sale at the same time. So do you make enough money to hire a quality employee? And the moment that you have a quality employee, when you think about whatever your source is or how you're getting items, if you're just doing it, through thrift stores or whatever, or you have some connections or something, okay, once they have these connections, everybody has access to eBay. What's stopping them from starting their own eBay? You see what I'm saying? It has to be a certain amount of salary, security, benefits or something, so that it's not worth their time to just branch off and do it on their own. They don't need to take on the risk of doing this. But if at any time an employee feels like, well, I'm doing the same job anyways, but if I'm the owner of the account, then I make as much money as my boss does, then you're not going to keep the employee in this business model. That's the problem. If you are doing a replenishable business model where you are the expert, you are the product developer, the only help you actually need are people to help you pack stuff. That position is so low level that they never really get to see the back end of the listings and how you make the magic happen. They just know, shipping labels keep pouring in and then they have to, keep packing stuff. They never actually learn the business model. You know what I mean? While over here, you're training somebody else and paying them to be you, right? And honestly, at the end of the day, they don't have to be you. They could still just be themselves because it's too close.
The things that I don't want to do in my business that just aren't getting done because I have either a mental block or a time block or whatever. I need to start outsourcing that stuff so that I can continue building my business on eBay if I'm going to continue building my business.
What he's feeling here, okay, is from the book, The E-Myth, all right, which he realizes this. I'm so happy for him that he's got to this point, got from this A to B on this mindset, okay, because it is my firm belief, okay, that your mindset is your superhero ability, okay? It sounds crazy, but what I mean by that is that if you don't have the right mindset, you won't make certain decisions because you're just like, you know what I mean? Your attitude towards things is your mindset, right? Once you're in the correct headspace, you have a different attitude, right? You're going to be more aggressive towards stuff. You're going to be more patient towards something. You're going to endure something more because you're in the right headspace. So here he realizes that, like, I need to get somebody else to do this for me so that I can focus on being the entrepreneur. Right now, all of his reflections and stuff that he's saying, right, is the mind of the entrepreneur. He's starting to see inefficiencies. How do I optimize? How do I correct stuff? He's starting to become a problem solver. Never confuse, just being busy with business. Okay, the two completely different things. A lot of times when, people are so busy running the business, they're not building the business. It's very key to understand that.
Which I'll answer here in just a second. Now, one thing that I will say about that is that I have put out a couple of classified ads for hiring assistant listers and that kind of thing. I'm going to have to make an entirely separate video on that because it has been an interesting revelation in trying to find qualified help to do the easiest job in the world. And I mean, some of these people want $20 an hour and they can't spell dollars. So if you can't spell dollars, you can't make dollars, I think.
He quotes himself. Oh, that's great. I love this guy. I'm so sorry. Okay. Oh man, that's great. This is exactly what I'm saying, right? They want $20 an hour and you're not even going to get a quality individual in order to do this. So, sir, what is your answer? Did you come up with a creative answer? Because honestly, I have no answers for this other than to evolve to a different business model. Because the way it is right now is there's too many things to correct. You're better off changing the model.
I don't know. And then the third thing that I kind of realized about this is that my exit strategy, which is pretty much non-existent, is a weak point for my business. If there was some reason why I had to sell my business in a hurry, I have tons of inventory. I have 4 entire storage units full of inventory that are just waiting to get processed and listed. There's no shortage of inventory in my business, but if I had to walk away quickly, I would be forced to liquidate at a huge discount to get out from under everything, because it is absolutely not a business that I could walk away from and have it still earn money. It's not something that I could sell to somebody else and put them into the position that I'm in and have them just immediately take over and start making money.
That's so well worded. Exactly. That's the problem with this, because the whole time that he's been working on eBay, he's refined himself, right? He's the star of the show. He knows how to do everything. The moment he gets replaced, it's over.
So if I have an exit strategy that I'm going to develop for this company, it's got to be something that is going to automate a lot of this. And there's a couple things that I've looked at that are, promising, but not anything that I have fully settled on just yet.
You know what it feels like for me? It feels like charades, right? It feels like I'm like movie 3 words like that, and he's getting it. He's so almost there, right? When he said exit strategy, I'm so happy for him. Okay, what is your exit strategy for the items and what you're going to do? These are all things that we need to sit and wear the captain's cap, right? And be an entrepreneur and just be like, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? Like, spend more time as the entrepreneur. If you had a replenishable business, a replenishable product business model, you would have so much more time to sit in the captain's seat and think about your business and plan ahead. Because without your own leadership, the business has no direction, right? And then you're just constantly spinning the hamster wheel in a cluster of busy work, chasing the next sale in order to pay the bills, right? At some point, in your 20 years, in your 10 years, what do you have to show for all that, right? And he specifically says over here that somebody else can't take over, and the business plummets without you.
I'll make a couple more videos on that kind of stuff too as I get a little bit more information on them. So that is the basic boil down of what happened to my eBay account when I stopped listing for 4 months. So am I going to keep selling on eBay? I don't know. I really don't know, actually. I am still undecided on it. What I do know is that it's November 2nd, and I'm going to have to start listing like crazy if I'm going to catch this holiday rush. And this is a holiday season that you're going to want to list for because there's supply chain issues for new gifts. I have a feeling that it's going to be a pretty big secondhand year this year. So if you are not listing currently, get yourself in gear because it will be a good year for it, I think. So I'm going to have to do that.
And it's so hard to exit this strategy.
At the very least, the rest of my inventory, and I'll be listing like crazy till the end of the year just to capitalize the most on this holiday season. And then I'm going to take a step back at the beginning of the year and probably reevaluate where I'm at again. I have some other interests that I'm pursuing that may or may not take off. And if that were the case, I don't want to even say anything about it because I don't want to make promises that I can't deliver on because I tend to do that sometimes. I'm sorry, Greg. I think that was your name. And so, yeah, that's the answer to that.
Okay, let's come back up to the top. Right. So, I feel bad for him that he had to get out of this, but I'm also so happy for him because he's shown so much growth in understanding business. It's not about just getting out of he needed to pivot and evolve, right? And he did say to go pivot over to replenishable goods. And honestly, that's what you should have been doing from the start. That way you haven't squandered all the time in the beginning, and now the whole business is constantly running on elbow grease, right? This is what I hope that you guys will pick up and learn from this guy's lesson. Anyways, guys, that is the video. As always, I hope you've learned something, and if you enjoyed that, please consider subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next. Take care, everyone. All right, it's time for Highlight the Hater. This episode's keyboard warrior comes from the 405 Picker 4. The fact that there are many, myself included, that make a good living selling these low STR items is enough proof that you're wrong. Is it the easiest or best way to run a business? Probably not. Does it mean that it can't be a viable option? And to that I say, but isn't low STR just another way of saying low demand items? And by your own admission, if it's not the easiest nor the best way to run a business, then what is your incentive to stay that way?